Hi there, welcome to Wyckoff Technical Analysis session for SUI. If you're new to my sessions, here are the 3 key takeaways you can expect from this session. So let's start with the weekly chart of SUI. As of this moment, SUI's price is at the point that I consider it has shown the sign of weakness once again since the one back in March this year. So over half a year now that this reappeared. So let's focus on the blue tags for the time being, because the yellow ones, I was basically challenging my thinking. Would that be a mini accumulation cycle back in March till mid-April? As of this point, I'm still inclined to think the blue scenario is the one that we are seeing. And if this is the case, and this downtrend continues, SUI will eventually get through the preliminary support stage and eventually show us a selling climax. So it's time to borrow that tag from July 2024, because in the big picture, the bigger time frame, it's almost 1.5 years since SUI's last bigger accumulation. Alright, so we expect this to come. This probably takes maybe 50%. So these together, 65. The other 35 goes to here. So there's still a chance for a rebound. So if you look at what happened over here, that was an LPSY when the price first challenged this 2.35 yellow key level. So if this really comes down to near the 1.5 orange key level, it's not a surprise to see a little bump before it re-enters the accumulation. That's why I'm putting a 35% over there. It may not happen, but still, I'm showing you there's a chance. Okay, so that's the big picture. It's the top remains same, coming back for a second test around the blue key level 3.9, but then I already mentioned this yellow dash line now turns a resistance, which this little candlestick over here these two candlesticks over here kind of confirmed that the line has its effect on the price when it rebounds. Okay, let's get to the daily time frame and look clearly at the trend. So the trend started sometime in the beginning of October when that LPSY showed up, and eventually it broke through the green key level and also the basically the slower downtrend back then because of the October 10th event. It basically sped up the decline. You see the rate of decline that started in late July, it was kind of gradual until October 10th that triggered a steeper decline. So as of now, we already have gone through the green key level, the yellow key level, and now is heading towards the orange key level. And in this chart, we have again 2 sets of tags, because when I look at some other altcoins, it triggered me to think that the October 10th event might have triggered a selling climax. Alright? And then this probably not an LPSY but an automatic rally. And then we've got subsequent second test and test before it dipped further to show a spring, which again, it's still heading towards a low point. That's the red scenario. The yellow scenario, however, is that we're considering this bunch of horizontal trading was only the preliminary support period, and the selling climax just appeared last week. What we are going through now is after the automatic rally around November 7th to November 10th, Now we're going through the second test. Okay, that's the yellow scenario, because if you look back in history, sometimes during the preliminary support period, you'll see some fluctuations before it actually gets to the selling climax. Alright, so it's not always like an entire red leg down. There can be white candles in between. Likewise for this case, it just took a bit longer, so that's why I have two scenarios here, and it looks to me this time more likely is the yellow scenario that's going on. If that's the case, there can be deeper tests towards, I'm not trying to scare you, but I'm just telling you some worst case scenario based on what happened in the past. The long-term playground zone, the bottom of it, sits around 36 cents. Currently, we are still about 5 times away from that. We're at around $1.8, so almost 5 times of that price. However, if this downtrend continues, and when it passes through the orange and red key level, that's the last line of defense or support we have. Don't forget, in other altcoins, we have seen prices that has gone below the long-term playground zone, meaning all-time low has shown up in 2025 for some altcoins. I hope we won't get to that level. Alright, if this downtrend continue, the first time point that a potential breakout is going to happen lies around beginning of December. So if I make this even tighter, just to make sure I align that to the top, because that would affect how we see the dates. So it comes closer to the end of this month. Okay? So if the price continues to, or the candlesticks continue to move across in this narrow range while finding support above the orange key level of $1.5, we'll eventually get to this decision point near the end of this month, meaning just in about 2 weeks time or less, because a breakout can happen sooner. That is going to tell us, is the downtrend going to continue, or is it going to finish and turn into a horizontal trend, or even a challenge to the higher levels of 2.35 or the 2.9. Alright, so let's see what it looks like when we come back next week, because that the thing, or the fact that we're getting very close to that timing means, in a week or like after next session, we may be able to see something, or even between now and next session, if this start to find, I'm trying to see whether there's an intermediate support, and it seems that there is. So last spring, well, interestingly, it's also springtime of this year when the spring happened, okay, in April. The lowest point is very close to where we are now, at around 1.73. That's also the low point during this period of trading before it climbed to the very top back in October 2024. So if I draw this line across, okay, let's set this to just this interval and below. Then we'll see why the price is, why there is buying from the bottom. You see this wick over there, right? Because we're at this intermediate level. Not that it's strong enough, but still it's providing enough support. If it continues to provide solid support, there's also, one timing around November 23rd. So about 1 week ahead of the November 29th we talk about, assuming the price comes down. If it doesn't, that means in a week and a half's time, that decision will happen. Alright, so for the next few days is pretty key whether the price will continue to break lower. If it does, then the decision timing will come at a later date. Okay, we certainly don't hope to see the price to go challenge the red level of $1, which means we'll get to near the mid December before a trend breakout opportunity gets closer. So that's all for SUI coin for today.